She slapped me. Nothing yelled. Nothing argued. She slapped me, looked me right in the eye, and said, "Give me the house keys." After 32 years of paying on that mortgage, because I've raised a husband in this very house, I know how it. After giving up everything for the sake of ensuring that the entire family was standing on firm ground, I didn't shout. I didn't raise my hand. I just stood there thinking, when did respect die within these walls? And trust me, what happened after that slap is something that no father should ever have to experience. Before I tell you what I did next and why it changed my family's life irrevocably, let's set the record straight with respect to the narrative that, take 1 second to hit. Like, if you think respecting parents is still an important topic. And subscribe if you're interested in genuine stories of family, betrayal, and quiet strength. Because around here, we don't scream. We let truth speak. All right, let's finish this. Do you ever realize how things don't fall apart at the scream? It usually begins with something small. A look that lingers too long. Silence which answers better than words. A door that doesn't quite close the same way anymore. But sometimes, in some situations, life does scream. Sometimes it screams with a noise you never forget. The sound of a hand striking your face. I am 72 years old. My name is Raymond Carter. Most people just refer to me as Ray. I've buried my wife. I've buried my brother. I have buried half the friends that I grew up with. I said. However, nothing, and I mean nothing, could prepare me for the moment I was slapped in the face by my very own daughter-in-law and asked for the house keys as if I were a trespasser in my own home. That noise echoed in the hallway. Nothing too loud. There is nothing. Just sharp. Final. It's like the crack of the gavel in the courtroom when you've been sentenced for something you never knew you were being tried for. My cheek was on fire. My ears were ringing. And the woman who stood before me, that woman I had welcomed with so much love into our family, saw me as if I were the problem. "Give me the keys," she said. "No, please. No hesitation. No shame. Simple entitlement. Just rage. Only control. But before I tell you how we got there, you have to learn about the house. Because this house has been the cause of all problems. The house is on Maple Ridge Road. White siding. Green shutters. A porch creaking in the same place for the last 43 years. I purchased a car in 1982, back when I had the strength in my hands to hoist beams, when my knees didn't whine about climbing stairs, or when Margaret still laughed as if life owed her a debt. Here we raised our son. The birthday candles in the dining room were blown out. Holiday mornings erupted with torn pieces of wrapping paper all over the living room floor. Arguments, apologies, slammed doors, and late-night talks, all this took place under this roof. Margaret died 12 years ago. Cancer. Fast. Heartless. People asked me, "Are you going to sell?" After my family's funeral. Too many memories, they said. Far too much territory for one person, they complained. But it wasn't just a house. It was my anchor. And then, when my son Daniel married Emily, I thought I was accumulating a family. It turns out that I was actually signing my own eviction notice. I just didn't know it yet. Emil, I found Emily very charming when I met her for the first time. Too charming, perhaps. The kind of woman who smiles with her mouth closed, but her eyes are calculating. She laughed at my jokes, addressed me as Mr. Ray at first, brought homemade desserts but tasted like the ones in the store, only better presented. However, Daniel was in love. My son had been a soft-hearted boy, like his mother, and Emily knew just how to speak to him. They started marital relationships quickly, too fast. 6 months after they met, she was walking down the aisle in a dress that cost more than my first car. I didn't object. Father does not interfere when he finds his boy happy. That was my first mistake. The first crack. It was small. Emily organized a kitchen one afternoon during her visit with Daniel. Didn't ask, simply rearranged items. "Oh, this works better," she said, smiling. I let it go. Then she spoke about my habits. "You really still get up at 5? Do you need all this space? Have you thought about downsizing?" Downsizing. That word followed me like a shadow, one of the women said. After this, there was a suggestion. "Dad," Daniel said one evening, rubbing his hands together nervously, "Emily and I were thinking maybe we could stay here for a bit, just until we save for a place." She smiled sweetly. Too sweet. I hesitated. However, Margaret's voice echoed in my mind. The family is a unit witch. So I said yes. That was my second mistake. When they moved in, at first, everything was fine. They took over the guest room. Emily decorated it like a Pinterest explosion. Daniel was still calling me Dad, still asked before borrowing things. But slowly, Emily began to act as if she were in her own house. She replaced furniture, complained about my TV noise, criticized my food. "Too much salt isn't good for you," she'd say, pushing my plate away. She locked doors that I had never locked before, installed intelligent devices without understanding them, changed the Wi-Fi password without notifying me. And Daniel, his gaze stopped meeting mine. It was then that I realized that something was amiss. The day everything shifted. Although it occurred on Tuesday, there's nothing out of the ordinary about. I was sitting at the kitchen table reading the newspaper when Emily entered carrying an envelope. Her lips were pursed. Her posture was stiff. "We need to talk with you," she said to Daniel and me. "You look beautiful, Monet." Silent, I folded the paper. "What's going on?" "I have to go," Emily said, dropping the envelope on the... There were documents inside. Highlighted. Sticky notes. She tapped the top page. "We think it's time to talk about the future of this house." My gut tightened. "What about it?" She breathed, as if she were doing me a favor. "You're getting older. This place is a lot to handle. Daniel and I have plans. It just makes sense for us to take over." I stood there staring at her. "Take over?" "Yes," she said. "Ownership. Ownership of my house." That was a house that I'd actually purchased and had finally paid off 30 years. The house that has my name on its deed. Daniel finally spoke. "Dad, we're just thinking long term." I laughed, a brief and humorless sound. "You're thinking wrong." Emily's smile disappeared. That's when her eyes hardened. That's when the mask slipped. The slap. "You're being selfish," she snapped. Slowly, I got up. "I think it's time you remembered whose house this is." Her face contorted. She stepped forward. "Miller." Too close. Before I could react. Smack. Her hand touched my cheek. Nothing hard enough to knock me down. Difficult enough to humiliate me. Daniel gasped, but he didn't move. I didn't stand between us. Didn't say my name. Emily leaned in. "Give me the keys," she said icily. "If you're going to live here, it'll be under our rules." The room began to spin. I could feel my skin flushing. My heart wasn't pounding. It sank because in that moment, something even worse than a slap, in that moment, I understood that my son had made his decision. And it wasn't me. The silence after. I didn't shout. Didn't curse. Didn't raise my hand. I just looked at Daniel. Waiting. Sharing is caring. He looked at the floor. "That stung far worse than the slap ever could," he said, taking I grabbed my keys. Not to hand them over, but to remind myself I still had them. "I'm going for a walk," I said quietly. "Nonsense. Don't be dramatic." I went outside, onto the porch. The same porch I once held Daniel on after his first broken heart. The same porch where Margaret waved to me every morning, David said. My cheek throbs, but I had a hollow feeling in my chest. But I knew then it wasn't over. This was only the start, due to the fact that when one believes that he or she has rights to you, they're already figuring out how to remove you from it. She says, pointing at an Emily, she wasn't finished. Not even clothes you ever walk back into your own house. Seeing people inside your home and feel like a trespasser, like the walls know you. But that's no longer true for the people inside. That walk I took after the slap was the longest walk of my life. Not because my legs were tired, because my mind wouldn't shut up. Every step down Maple Ridge Road, past a crumbling prefabric, I could hear the sound of it again. That slap, not loud, less dramatic, only final. I walked through neighborhoods where residents waved at me, people pruning hedges, children riding bicycles, normal life, while mine was quietly being taken apart. These lines represent the piece by piece. Since then, I won't say I've had any really problematic experiences with birds. The closest thing, when I returned an hour later, the house looked the same. However, something had changed. It is invisible, but permanent. The first locks. The first thing I noticed about this collection of essays was the door. The front door didn't open easily. I turned the knob. Nothing. I tried again. Locked. That had never happened. I knocked. Emily opened it, slowly, as if she were deliberating whether I deserved admission. "Oh," she said flatly, "you're back." I walked inside. Daniel was on the couch, his eyes fixed on his cell phone. Didn't look up. Didn't ask me if I was all right. Didn't ask why I had a red cheek. Emily locked the door behind me. Loud. On purpose. Something in me dropped. I didn't say anything. I went to the bathroom. Looked at myself in the mirror. The man in the mirror. The man staring back. Looked older than he had that morning. Rather weaker. Just smaller. As if the world had suddenly decided. I did not occupy as much room as before. That was the day. The house no longer felt like mine, she said. New rules. It started that night, he says. Emily called the hour for dinner. 6 sharp. No discussion. No asking. I arrived 5 minutes late. She glanced at the clock, then at me. We eat together, she said. Routine is important. I nodded, didn't argue, not because I agreed, since I was attempting to understand what game she was playing. Daniel talked very little throughout dinner, responded when spoken to, chewed quietly, like a kid who didn't want to draw attention. Emily spoke, regarding finances, regarding plans, concerning responsibility. Then she said it, Kendall wrote. We've been thinking, she said, slicing through her chicken. This house should really be in Daniel's name eventually. I placed my fork on the plate. Eventually, that word again. I'm not dead, I said. Emily smiled thinly. No one said you were. Daniel looked at his plate. That silence screamed. The paperwork. A few days later, I chance upon a folder placed on the dining table. Brown, thick, legal. Emily wasn't home. Daniel was in the shower. I didn't open it. I just looked at it. Something turned in my stomach. Later, that night, I asked Daniel about it. What's the folder on the table? He froze, just for a second. Then he shrugged. Stuff. What kind of stuff? Planning stuff. I leaned back. Planning what? Emily appeared at that moment. Perfect timing. She put her purse down carefully. Oh, that, she said. just future planning. You don't need to worry. And that's when I knew. When someone says don't worry to you, you should worry. Plural noun. The bedroom incident. One morning, I entered my room, and my dresser was gone. Gee, my clothes were folded, neatly stacked on the bed. Emily was there, hands on hips. This room receives better light, she said. Daniel and I are switching. I felt dizzy. You moved my stuff? Yes. Without asking, she tilted her head. We didn't think you'd mind. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It emerged broken and exhausted. That was Margaret's dresser. Emily's face remained the same. Well, she doesn't need it anymore. That sentence seared itself deeper. Compared to the slap, Daniel stood behind her. According to, silent, again, I packed my clothes personally, to the smaller room, at the end of the hall, the one that used to be storage. That night, I slept in a room that wasn't mine, within a home that was falling apart. The neighbor, a week later, my neighbor Frank spotted me lurking about. He squinted at my face. You all right, Ray? I nodded. Fine. He didn't believe him. You don't look fine. Almost told him. Almost. But shame has a way of closing your mouth. Therefore I smiled. Just getting old. He slapped me on the shoulder. He joined the club. As he walked away, he saw Polly. Emily was watching from the window. Eyes squint, calculating. I knew then that I was. She didn't want anyone to know what was going on behind those isolation. That's how control starts. Johnson, the bank letter. The bank. The mail came on a Thursday. From the bank. Written to me. Emily took it inside. Is already open. That in itself made my chest tighten. You forgot to say one thing, she said. What? The house still has a lien issue. I looked at the paper. It didn't. I had cleared everything years ago. See this paragraph, she said. Highlighted. I read it twice, then 3 times. That's old-fashioned, I said. This was resolved. She shrugged. Paperwork says otherwise. Daniel stood by her side, confused, unsure, Back to the Future 35, for explanation. And that's when it all came clear. She was giving him information, bit by bit, toxin disguised as truth. The lawyer. A few days later, Emily talked about a lawyer, casually, like she was ordering groceries. He says, we spoke to someone. She said, just understand options. What options? I asked. She smiled. Guardianship, power of attorney, that sort of thing. My heart was pounding. You think I'm incompetent? She raised her hands. No, only planning, in case something happens. Something had already occurred. My son had stopped seeing me as his father and started noticing me as a challenge to be managed. That night, I sat in my cell all alone and cried for the first time since Margaret died. Not loud. Nothing but silent tears. The kind of guys I don't admit to. The decision. But grief does something funny. It makes after it breaks you, it hardens something inside. That night, lying on that narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. And I sure as hell wasn't going to hand over my keys. I was going to watch. Listeners, document, since people like Emily, they will become sloppy every time, while they feel as if they already have won. But then, of course, she realized that the fake kindness. The following few days, Emily changed tactics. She became more casual in. Suddenly, she was nice, brought me tea, was asked about my feelings, touched my arm lightly when she spoke, Just want what's best for you, she said. This is where you should run. When cruelty wears a smile, she asked about my medications, my appointments, my memory. Do you ever forget things? She asked quite nonchalantly. No, I said. She nodded. It's like she was taking note of it somewhere. The conversation I overheard one night. I had trouble sleeping. I passed by the living room. Emily and Daniel were whispering. I stopped. Emily's voice was low. If we wait too long, it'll get harder. Daniel's tone was uncertain. He's still sharp. She sighed. That's what evaluations are for. Evaluations, I stepped back silently. My hands were shaking. But they weren't going to ask anyway. They had something to prove. Something that wasn't true. Claire the calm before war. Armin the next morning. Emily gave me some coffee. Smiled. Big day, she said. What for? Oh, she said, laughing. Just errand, for her eyes were shining. Excited like a hunter who knows a trap has been set. I drank my coffee. Calm because while she thought she was moving her pieces on her board, she didn't know I had already made a call of my own. A call she never expected. And the next step? Everything would change. Point one mistake that people make is while handling old men. They believe that silence equals weakness. They believe that patience equals confusion. They believe age equates to ignorance. Emily believed all three. And that's why she never saw me coming. The phone call, the call that I made occurred very early in the morning, before Emily woke up, before Daniel shuffled out with his coffee and guilt. I sat on a desk in my own room, the room they shoved me into like leftover furniture. This is another single line. I looked at the phone for a long time before dialing, because pride is such a heavy thing, and asking for help, that doesn't come easy. When you spend your life being the one people have leaned on. There were 2 calls on the phone. Who's there? Came a voice from behind. Raymond Carter, he said with a chuckle. Well, I'll be damned. Thought you forgot about me. I didn't forget, I said. I just hoped that I'd never need you. There was a pause. Then his tone changed. That bad, huh? W. His name was Thomas Blake, estate attorney, old friend, golfing buddy from back when my knees were cooperating. He had previously organized our wills many years ago, Margaret and me. I trusted him, and trust is everything. When you're about to walk into a war you never wanted, the meeting, we met after 2 days. I told Emily that I was going for a doctor's appointment. She smiled. Do you want me to come with you? That was no kindness. It was surveillance. No, I replied equably. I can handle myself. Her eyes narrowed for a split second. Then she nodded. Of course. I drove myself. Steady hands. Sharp minds. Because nothing clears your head, or realize that they are attempting to erase you while you're still breathing. Thomas listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just leaned back in his chair. And it's time for me to air everything out. The slap, the locks, the paperwork, the talk of guardianship. When I finished, he sighed slowly. Ray, he said, she's laying groundwork. I know. She's trying to establish control, he went on. Create a narrative that you're declining. I'm not. I can see that, he said firmly. But courts do not care about feelings, he continued. They care about documentation. That word again. Documentation. I nodded. Then let's document. A smile spread across his face. That's exactly what we're going to do. The file. This. Thomas opened a drawer and took out a new folder. Blank. Clean. This, he said, is how you protect yourself. We began from basics. Updated will. Individual medical reports by private doctors. Cognitive testing. 03. Consistency is important. He also asked a question, which made my chest tighten. Has anyone asked you to sign anything recently? I thought of a folder on the table. Emily smiles, her casual tone. Yes, I said. Not yet, but it's coming. Thomas nodded. Good. Don't sign anything. Ever. Without me. That office made me lighter. Not because my troubles were over, but for the first time in weeks, I was not alone. The evaluation. Emily lost her patience during the time of evaluation. I told her at dinner, casually, as if it was no big deal. I had a cognitive assessment today. Her fork halted midair. You did what? Doctor's orders, I said calmly. Routine. Daniel appeared confused. Emily recovered quickly. Oh, she said, forcing a smile. That's good. Very responsible. But her eyes were furious. Since she hadn't prepared for this, it was because she wanted to control the narrative. There was now an eyewitness to this story. The first report. The test results came back negative. Exceptional for my age, declared the doctor. Memory sharp. Decision-making intact. No evidence of impairment. I left the report on my desk, right in front of them. Emily recognized this. Didn't say a word. That evening, I heard her pacing. Control slipping. Creates a sense of restlessness. Daniel cracked. Daniel began acting strange. He asked questions. Quiet ones. Dad, did you really get tested? Yes. Why? Because someone doubted my ability to handle my own affairs. He swallowed. Emily didn't mean. I know exactly what she meant. That was the first time. He didn't defend her. Just stood there. Torn. I didn't push. Seeds develop better. Unless you don't dig them up too soon. Second move. Emily escalated. It was always. One day I arrived home to find my mail being open again. Bills laid out on the table. Highlighted. Circled. This needs attention, she said abruptly. You missed a payment. I examined the statement. Paid. To time. She was fibbing. Not even well. I didn't miss anything, I said. She crossed her arms. You're getting defensive. There it was. Classic. If you question them, they accuse you of instability. I smiled. No, I said softly. I'm getting informed. She didn't like that. The recording. That night, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I began taping conversations. Not secretly. Not illegally. It was announced by. I'll be recording all the important conversations from now on, I said. Emily snorted. That's ridiculous. No, I said, what's ridiculous is pretending this is normal. Daniel was looking quite uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is where truth begins to leak out. The doctor visit. Emily was insistent on coming with me to my next appointment. I agreed. Sometimes you let the snake bite you. Observe you walking safely on the grass. The doctor greeted me warmly. Ask questions. Simple ones. Complex ones. I responded to all of them without hesitation. Let me interrupt. Emily attempted. Wrong me. Propose ideas. The doctor shut her down gently, was Jackson's report. I have to hear this from Mr. Carter himself. By the end of the visit, the doctor turned to her. Your father-in-law has excellent mental health. Emily's jaw clenched. That was strike two. The document she didn't know about. In her, what Emily didn't know, Emily, was that Thomas had assisted me with something else. A living trust, also called the house, transferred already. Not to Daniel, not to Emily, to the trust, with very specific instructions. Any attempt to declare me incompetent, therefore I say, would initiate an investigation. any abuse or coercion. It would nullify their participation altogether. I wasn't giving the house away. I was protecting it and myself. The explosion. The explosion occurred on Sunday. Emily could hold it no more. I'll look through those, she said, slamming papers. This isn't working, she snapped. What isn't? I asked calmly. This situation. You're making things difficult. Our mother was a lovely woman. Emily. No, she interrupted him. He's doing this on purpose. I leaned back. I am living in my own house. She laughed. Cold. That won't last. Daniel stood up. Enough. That was different. You could have told me about this. Excuse me. I said enough, he repeated. You're going too far. There was silence in the room. Who are you? She asked, taking a step back, her eyes fixed on him. Because she hadn't. He was finally waking up. The threat. Emily turned to me. The man speaking low. You think paperwork will save you? I met her eyes. I know it will. She leaned in. You don't know what I'm capable of. I smiled. That's funny, I whispered. Because neither do you. She stormed out, door slamming, walls vibrating. Daniel sat back down, hands shaking. I'm sorry, Dad, I nodded. I know. That wasn't all that was made right but it cracked the dam. Nadella wrote the quiet shift after this. Emily changed. Again, this time colder. Smarter, she stopped confronting me directly, she continued. Began working with Daniel. Late night talks. Whispers, tears. I could hear them through the walls. But I was no longer afraid, because while she thought she was holding the reins tightly, every move she made was calculated. Every was being documented, translated, logged. Ready? And then came the time. She would then be compelled to confront the truth. To recap, Jane the Pink Moon continues with, the night before there's a moment in every quiet war, when you realize peace was never your goal. Control was. Emily wanted no compromise. She didn't want understanding. She doesn't even want the house. What she wanted was certainty. The certainty that she was the boss. Certainty of her being flawless, of her uniqueness, of no one. Certainty that the world bent when she pushed. I don't need a husband. I don't want a husband. That's when she decided, Ellen, I needed to disappear. The strange morning. It didn't feel right from the moment I woke up that morning. Too quiet. No clinking coffee cups. No Emily pacing while talking on the phone. No Daniel rushing out late for work. The house had an air of being set. Like a set, waiting for actors to walk in. There was a note on the counter. Out running errands. Back later. Emily's handwriting. Handy. Controlled. Daniel's car was also missing. There, I stood for a long time, staring at that note. A sensation in my breast contracted. Not fear. April, you learn to perceive danger signals when you've lived long enough. The knock. It came at 10:17 a.m. Strong. Official. Not angry. Not friendly. Just certain. I opened the door. There were 2 police officers on my porch. A man and a woman. Both professionality. Mr. Raymond Carter? The male police officer asked. That's me. Sir, we have received a welfare concern for you. It was there. Emily's last play. The accusation. They went inside, eating at the dinner table. The same table where my wife once planned birthdays, and my son once did homework. The officer cleared his throat. We were told you may be experiencing confusion, he said delicately. That there may have been aggressive behavior. Hostile. I almost laughed. But I didn't. I prepared for this. I understand, I said calmly. I think it's from my daughter-in-law. They looked at each other. Yes, Nodded the female officer slightly. She asked about your safety. And others, meaning herself, meaning control. I nodded slowly. Would you like to see something? I asked. They said yes. The file comes out. I went to my room, opened the drawer, pulled out the folder. The one Thomas helped me build. Medical assessments. Assesses and evaluates. Documented dates. Written records. I put it on the table. A cop browsed through it. Then the other. Their posture altered. This wasn't what they expected. I expected this, I said softly. So I made sure to document everything. The male police officer looked up. Mr. Carter, these assessments are recent. Yes. And thorough. Yes. The female officer closed the folder. Sir, you seem completely competent. I nodded. I am. The recording. It's very difficult at this point to say. I played a recording. Emily's voice. Clear. Sharp. You think paperwork will save you? You have no idea what I'm capable of. There was a hush. The officers didn't react immediately, but their eyes did. That audio clip turned around the whole discussion. Daniel returns. This is when the door opened. Daniel entered. Inheritance of. Saw the officers. His face turned pale. What's going on? He asked. The officers stood. We're responding to a welfare check. Daniel turned to me, confused. Then came the realization. Slow. Painful. Emily did this, he whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The call to Emily. After, the decision to shoot came from a female police officer. Put it on speaker. Emily picked up on the second ring. Picturesque voice. Hello. Ma'am, this is Officer. Emily interrupted. Is my father-in-law okay? Concern. Experienced. The tone of the officer remained neutral. Mr. Carter appears to be in good health and sound mind. Silence. Then Emily's voice hardened. That's. Daniel closed his eyes. That was the moment. His illusion collapsed. The question that mattered. The officer continued. Ma'am, we need to ask. Have you tried to limit Mr. Carter's access to his residence or his finances? An interlude, then defensiveness. I was only trying to help. Daniel snapped. By calling the police on my father? Emily shouted. You don't understand. No, Daniel said softly. I finally do. The consequences. Emily returned home an hour later. Angered, surrounded. There were still police officers there. She attempted to smile. It did not succeed. They asked her questions. Specific ones. On keys. Regarding locked doors. Of open mail. She contradicted herself twice. By the third time, the officers stopped taking notes and began watching. I didn't say a word. Sometimes silence is the loudest witness. The warning. Before they left, the male officer turned to Emily. Ma'am, any further attempts to misrepresent Mr. Carter's condition, are you aware, or limit his rights, this could be considered elder abuse. It is a hard word to. Abuse. Emily's face turned white. Daniel stared at her, not angry, broken. The aftermath. After they left, Emily blew up. This is your fault. She shouted at me. Daniel positioned himself between us. No, he said. This is yours. She looked at him. You're choosing him? Daniel's voice trembled. I'm choosing the truth. She laughed. You'll regret this. Then she packed a bag. She continued to. Stormed out. The way the front door of a picture fell off the wall. I picked it up. Margaret, do you see that man over there? Consistent, immutable. The silence that followed, the house was quiet again. But different. Not tense, not aggressive, just tired. Daniel was sitting across from me, head in hands. I didn't see it, he said. I let her convince me you were slipping. I extended my arm over the table, placed my hand on top of his. That's how control works, I said. Slow, his eyes welled up in tears. I'm sorry, Dad, I nodded. I know. The legal step. In that night, I called Thomas, told him everything. He listened, then said the words, which gave me a much-needed breath of fresh air. Ray, you're protected, and now she's on record. Milt, Emily believed she'd erased me from her life instead. She had removed her clothing. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because it was perilous, not because I was angry, but because for the first time in long, the house was quiet in a manner that wasn't intimidating. No whispered conversations behind closed doors. No footsteps pacing around the room as if someone was counting down. Not a sense in the world that I was being watched inside my own walls. Nothing but the refrigerator humming. The old clock in the hallway, ticking as it always had. The house breathed again. Daniel slept on the sofa, which I came to realize when I got up, like about 3 a.m, to get water. He looked smaller there, curled in on himself like a boy instead of man. That is when it dawned on me. This wasn't just about a house. It never was. I changed the subject. It was about how easily people convince themselves that they are doing the right thing, when what they are really doing is taking the easy way out. Daniel did not one day wake up and decide upon betraying his father. There, he was led in slowly, step by step, lie upon lie. And how about Emily? She didn't see me as a person. She looked on me as a barrier that happened to breathe. That's why the last chapter didn't start with shouting. It started with paperwork. A week after the police visit, Thomas called me. They filed, he said. Filed what? I asked. He said, a petition to impair the confidence, plead undue influence. I could have burst out laughing. She doesn't know when to stop, does she? No, said Thomas. And that's going to cost her. The date of the court session was scheduled right after that. It was what Emily wanted over. She wished for control back. She wanted a judge to do what manipulation no longer could. After that, Daniel came with me to every meeting. Quiet at first, ashamed, but slowly he started asking questions. The right ones. What's the scenario if she wins? What if she loses? What does this mean for us? Us. The weight of that word hit now. I told the truth. I lose the house while I'm alive, if she is declared the winner. If she loses any claim to it forever. And us, I said softly, depends on whether you're ready to live with the truth. He nodded, did not argue. That told me more than words ever could. The day of court, Emily appeared, all dressed for a show. Perfect hair, soft makeup, a look that spoke volumes. Concerned wife, worried daughter-in-law. She didn't look my way. Not once. Daniel did. He looked at me like a man walking into a storm, knowing he helped bring the clouds. The judge listened. Patient, careful. Emily's attorney spoke first. Discussed age, about risk, about concern. Used words like decline and safety and best interest. I said nothing and just sat there. Then Thomas stood. He didn't raise his voice, didn't dramatize. He just presented the facts, medical reports, dates, recordings, police's record. Then he played the words of Emily herself, as clear as daylight, cold, threatening. Of course, you don't know what I'm capable of. The judge then leaned back after saying that. Long silence. Emily stirred in her seat. For the first time since I had met her, she sounded unsure. The ruling came quickly. The trust stood. The petition was denied. And the judge added something more. A warning. Further attempts to interfere would be handed down as elder abuse. Emily didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even appear angry. She looked void. It's as if he has just now realized that. The game was over, and no one was clapping. Outside the courthouse, she turned to Daniel. "You did this," she said. Daniel didn't bat an eyelash. "Nah," he responded. "I finally let you stop doing it." That marked the end of their marriage. Not that day, but in that instant. She left 2 weeks later, packed up quietly, didn't say goodbye, didn't ask for forgiveness. Some people will not apologize, because this would be to admit they were wrong from the outset. Daniel remained, because I had asked him to, because he did. We talked more in the first months than we have had in years. Real talks, uncomfortable ones, about his mother, about guilt. It is so easy about it that, to confuse love with loyalty. In the evening, we sat on the veranda. Same creek, same air. He stared out into the yard. "I don't know how to make it right," he said. I thought about that. "You don't," I said. "You make it honest. That's all anyone can do." He nodded. Time passed. Slowly. Naturally. It was like the house was mine again. Not because I'd won, but it was because I was no longer defending myself. One afternoon, Daniel came to me with an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Divorce papers," he said quietly. "Signed." I didn't say I was sorry. Sometimes endings are mercy. Weeks later, I made a decision of my own. Called Thomas again. Told him I wanted to amend the trust. Everything. He asked. "No," I replied. "One thing." When it was ready, I called Daniel into the living room. Handed him a set of keys. He froze. "Dad, these aren't ownership," I said. "They're trust." His eyes welled. "I don't deserve—" "No," I said, interrupting him gently. "You earned them." He hugged me. Not tight, not desperate, just real. That night, as I locked the door, I realized something. That slap didn't take my dignity. The threats didn't take my home. And fear didn't take my family. What almost did was silence. So, if you're listening to this, and somebody makes you feel small inside something you've created with your own hands, don't assume it's too late. For all the issues age brings, it also brings a strength that time alone can provide. Don't presume age means SURR, and never mistake quiet for weak. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is stand still and refuse to disappear, because houses are not taken. They're surrendered. And I never gave the keys back. That I discovered something that day. A home is more than walls and keys. It's memory, sacrifice, and dignity. You may demand keys. You can raise your hand. But you can't steal what a man has earned through his life. If the story touched your heart, you're not alone, she wrote. Often, the greatest pain is inflicted by those whom we protected the most. Keep strong. Remain calm. And never forget, respect is never optional. Respect is a